Morning.
Morning, Luis.
How are you?
Good. Sorry for the confusion. Yvonne sent out the link, so I just gave you my link. I hope. Yeah, here's Shiv too.
And you have a way of sending the link to all?
I did send it all. I sent it to Hugo and Melina. At least I know the address works for Hugo. Hi, Shiv. I haven't contacted. Let me just see the one I have from Melina.
I sent it to them also.
Ah, okay.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. How is Shiv today?
I'm good. How are you both? Hi, Luis.
Hey, how are you?
We're in the early morning.
Hello.
Yes.
And you're
How are you? Hi,
Melina,
Steve.
how wonderful to see you.
Yeah, the same. How are you doing?
Very good, very good.
Enjoying spring?
Oh, you should see my garden. I'll try to share with you a picture.
Hi, Shiv. Nice to meet you.
So Shiv is in India.
Uh-huh.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, folks. Okay. Hi. To meet you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Deepa.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Nice
this
to
is
meet
my
you.
garden, my
Oh, nice.
daffodils out front.
I've got daisies blooming. It's made me so happy. My garden's starting to bloom.
It's great you say that. It's just like how I feel too about it. Happy. It just
Overwhelmed. I can see these daisies and these purple flowers are coming, and I've got the joys.
But you're in London still, aren't you? You're not in Amsterdam, Deepa. Yeah?
Me, I'm in London.
Yeah.
But these are plants that I planted last year. So the fact that they're coming back and it's my kind of, my investment in love in the garden and beginning to sprout is it's cheap thrill.
Yay.
Right.
And there's our buddy from Belgium.
Hey, Hugo.
Hey, how are you, Melina?
Hello.
Hi, Deepa. Steve.
Morning, or afternoon.
Afternoon.
So I'm wondering, I'll just look at my email to see if Jeru and Yvonne you got the email change fine, Deepa?
No, I didn't. Yvonne forwarded it to me.
Ah, okay. So she's got it. So she must have forwarded it to
Jeru's actually at a conference, so I'm not sure if she's able to join. She's I think she's in Germany.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead then.
Okay. So
Thank you.
the idea, and welcome Melina and Hugo. The idea today, and I'll give you the space to each of you to introduce yourselves. But the idea for today is to explore the natural side of governance, to see if we can understand some of the dynamics, system dynamics in nature, and how they can inform governance and maybe inspire hybrid and alternative ways of creating organizational systems that actually work as if we were what we are, nature. So we've invited two colleagues and wonderful people to be with us. So Melina Angel, she's one of the conspirators in Colombia Regenerativa, and Hugo, who is also one of the conspirators, but we all meet together in the Regenerative Communities Network, which is a global network we have collaborated to foster and maybe kinder, that really focuses on connecting bioregional regeneration initiatives from around the world, and trying to understand how to support, how to amplify, how to, really navigate this transition towards regenerative, bioregional regenerative action. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and maybe Melina and Hugo can amplify a little bit of your background so people are aware. And back to you.
Thank you, Luis. Hello, everyone. Hi, Yvonne. Nice meeting you. I am biologist by training. I studied theoretical and evolutionary biology, and I did a model for evolution based on cognitive biology and quantum mechanics, based on philosophy of the cognitive philosopher, U.S. philosopher nobody knows, who's called Charles Peirce. Very interesting guy. And I studied biomimicry after that. And my point was that biomimicry was the practical part of my theoretical thesis. And what I realized is that what I really want for humanity is to evolve. So that's my project. I have it back here, how to evolve. And that's my north, or my south, or my center, depending on the dimension you want to see it. So everything that I had been doing in biomimicry is actually trying to bring nature's genius into our ways of doing things, or being, and our reconnection. And that brought me to the social systems. So I teach biomimicry for social systems and to reconnect people into how to create economies, organizations, governance, and so on. So I have been in contact with many people and trying to inform about how does nature do that. And I consider myself a biosphere translator, trying to understand how nature works and being a translator for everybody to understand. So that's that. You will have a very nice opportunity to listen many amazing things today about that.
I don't know, Liz, if regarding the time, maybe we let just Melina present and flow, and then I'll join and I do my introduction whenever she finishes.
And maybe just going around quickly on the Catalyst team, so Melina and Hugo know maybe your names and the role you play in Catalyst. That would be interesting for them to understand who they're speaking to.
Deepa, would you like to start?
Sure. My name's Deepa Merchandani. I'm currently COO of Catalyst 2030, the Secretariat. I say currently because actually this will be my last meeting, because I finish at Catalyst at the end of the month, which people here only, like Shiv knows, but I only told him on Monday. And we haven't had we're yet to announce it in the Governing Council meeting, so people don't know that. But just so you know that this will be my probably my last meeting with all of you. Within Catalyst, my role has been to, as here, we're looking at kind of the legal and governance structures, obviously, within the organization, the pillars that sit within me, HR, the finances, operationals, systems within the organization, and governance. So lovely to meet you. I'll leave that cliffhanger on the rest of what's going on in my life for a bit later. Yvonne?
Hey everyone, my name is Yvonne and I'm the operations coordinator, primarily focusing on governance and finance currently. And yeah, I'll be here in the couple of next meetings. So yes, back to you, Steve.
Maybe Shiv. Do you want to?
Hi, everyone. I co-founded an organization called Catalyst done 30 years ago, not connected with Catalyst 2030. So happens I named it that 30 years ago and been playing a role within Catalyst 2030, both globally in the board as well as I'm also the co-chair of localization working group. And in India, I play a role with the Indian chapter. I'm essentially interested in governance, institution building, and technology. These are my three passion areas. I've incubated around 200 social enterprises in India, and the Catalyst Group has got 8 entities with a variety of formats working on health, livelihoods, and climate change. Thank you.
And I know both Hugo and Melina very happily, but just to explain, in Catalyst 2030, I'm on the board and I have been helping to lead this systems governance inquiry. And I also lead something that we now call the Financial Ecosystems for Systemic Transformation as a working group. Thank you. Over to you, Melina.
Thank you. Okay. So I prepared some slides for you to see nature. And the big question always about governance is who's ruling the forest, no? Who's ruling these ecosystems? Who's the boss there, no? And Disney had taught us that it was the lion, or like this kind of myths about who's ruling, because it has been like impossible for Western culture to understand that there is no ruler here, no? So what we want to do actually is to a deep listening of the natural strategies of organization, how nature actually organizes. So we need to come back to the fact that we are nature, and that coming back to the essence of a living being, of being a living being, is very, very important for us now in order to harmonize ourselves to the biosphere. And that's very easy to know, to do, if we know that we are all these bacteria, fungi, viruses that share our body. We share our body with them. We are the ecosystem, the soil for them. And we actually share the same biodiversity of microbes with the soil, with a healthy soil. So many of our diseases had come from not having all these biodiversity in our bodies, especially the guts, but also the brain, the heart, the skin, the throat, everything. So how is that possible? How does organize themselves in order to, like, who's ruling who? The brain is ruling the bacteria, or the bacteria are ruling the brain? Like, kind of the questions that a normal perspective can ask. But actually, all life self-organize. And when we see all these fish schools or flocks, or they are moving as one organism, even if they are just individuals. So the question about self-organization is how they do this. And if we see around all the scales, we see exactly the same self-organizing processes. Quantum mechanics told us that there are these self-organizing processes from the quantum particles, and the molecules, the cells, everything is self-organized from the bottom up. The question is that we cannot see the self-organizing process at the same time that we see the already organism. For example, if we see an organism, we cannot see the self-organizing process of the cells. or if we see the ecosystem, we cannot see the self-organizing process of the organisms in that ecosystem. So this is the complementary principle, the Heisenberg principle of complementarity, and it's exactly the same thing that happens when we see these kind of images. But actually, what it happens with humans is that we self-organize, and we have this common sense for emergent order. And what it is asking us is this creativity to navigate chaos and complexity. And suddenly, if you see an office like that with a big line and people trying to do the line, and then they just creatively make the line with their shoes. And these kind of things happen a lot, especially in the South, in the global South. So they're just putting their shoes to make the line. And that's totally amazing, you know, like, and this emergent order is naturally happening. So instead of trying to control and to rule off this emergence, maybe we can just flow with them and make it part of our life. So this is how we need we want to control the bowl and put some cube in it. But life is totally the opposite. You know, it's moving and it is round and it is moving with it. So it's the realization that we are an open system, far from equilibrium, and that's the dynamics, the thermodynamics that we are in. So this transition from illusion to reality is coming from a very centralized perspective of control, and start to move towards the complexity of what reality is really, what it is in reality, what happens. And the complexity part is actually a huge amount of relationships. And those relationships can be in a very, you know, like ecosystemic perspective. In these relationships, they can have plus relationships, neutral and detrimental relationships, and all these are the combinations of them. I don't know if we will talk about this, but this is Hugo's diagram. But when we have plus and plus, so both are beneficial, we have the collaboration, the symbiotic relationships, and this relationship is very, very, very common in ecosystems. The other common relationship is predation. And at the bigger scale, predation is always compensating. So these relationships are very, very important. And the other important relationship that we have been taught that economy needs to be based on, or evolution needs to be based on, is competition. But competition is a force of evolution because it's avoided, because it's negative, it's detrimental for both species. So they need to move in order to get out of that relationship of mutual detrimental relationship. And so what happens when we have relationships and when we have, you know, like communities, and this is an equation that I discovered several years ago, which is what happened when we have individuals and communities, which is kind of our dilemma very often, you know, how we rule these communities if we are individuals. And actually what this equation tells us is that we have relationships, and we have the emergence of natural relationships that's naturally happening all the time. So why we not leverage this through self-organization, self-regulation, in a harmonization with the environment? And this is a consciousness of the process for us, right now, like to be able to organize in a way that the individuals will create a collective coherence with the environment and these harmonic relationships with the place. So we need to trust the process, and this is something that we are not very used to trust others or the intelligence of the communities and the groups, because we fear chaos. And we normally, instead of seeing something like that it is very nice, we see this, everybody just running and stepping upon others, and we don't understand the inner order in a chaotic perspective. But it's there. It's just a question of changing the perspective and changing the comprehension of the collective. That's complexity. That's how to navigate complexity. So if we see nature teaches us a let's say like a context for self-organization, and we can go with this. At some point, we are at this specific size of population with high levels of interactions, but sometimes we are a few of us, but the few of us, we are in relationship with more people. So as humans, we are really in a very high size of the population. So we can self-organize in many ways. There is also a non-homeostatic revitalization loop that it comes with the self-organizing processes. Local interaction without global control, and a low level of randomness. And this is very, very, very important to take into to welcome randomness into the living processes. So for these populations, the self-organization and bioinspired rules are focused on of leadership as a role, nor as a property of a characteristic. It's a role that can change in the communities. For example, in ants, we can see that 1/3 of population is leader. So, and leaders wander. So we have the line of ants, but we have all these ants that are not in the line, and we always try to, or we wonder why, or we are kind of that's noise of the order that we see. But actually what happens with these leaders is that if their food resource is over, or something happens, like rain or water comes or whatever, many of them are able to find another path and another solutions for what is going on, and they have more creativity, and they are more kind of sensing possibilities. So they are not just with one possibility that it already collapses as going towards that source, food source in this path, but they are just wandering more, open to more possibilities. So that's part of the leadership role. And another by inspired strategy are the bumblebees. They work in teams of 3, and they cross-pollinate individuals. So they form from 3 different teams of 3. One leader will go and tell the other ones what's going on. So they cross-pollinate, and they make like a flow of information there. And there is this the first sharing of the communities, where the resources are distributed in a way that holds the whole, in a transparent flow of information, of course. This is very, very, very important in order to have self-organization. This harmony biohomeostatic relation revitalization loops in complex systems, the needs are criteria for understanding how this harmonic ups and downs needs to go in the system. So normally dualities are aspect of the ranges, but not only dualities. But there are kind of, when, you know, like when a population of mice, the population grows, they will attract more predators. So there will be more predators. They will finish or put down the population of mice. So when there is no more food, the predators will also go down their populations or migrate or whatever. So there will be this compensation because the predators, when they are not that much, well, the mice population will grow again. So this is the homeostatic thing. So it is very important for self-organizing processes of not thinking that never will go down, like or never will, you know, go to another criteria or another perspective, or, you know, we need to understand the ups and downs in these processes. And this is due mainly but negative feedback loops, even though there are also positive feedback loops. The positive feedback loops is the delivery birthing. When contraction will increase the oxytocin, and the oxytocin will increase contractions, and so until the baby is born. Or a negative feedback loop when the heat will create sweat, and the sweat will release the heat. So the effect of the action will decrease the initiation of the process. And when we see how local actions are not controlled but a global perspective, we can see, for example, termites. So and this is the big question: how does nature build from the bottom up? And what happens is that they will find 1 to 3 local simple rules with between 2 to 8 connections per individual. So every individual has between 2 and 8 connections, like strong connections, and they will find by themselves to this local specific species and way to build from this tiny organism a huge termite mounds. And for this specific organism, as for any organization that has to find their local rules, their simple rules, for this one, the rule is about build up tower up until it starts to bend. That's the first rule. So every termite will start to, in any place, to build this tower, this little tower, at their scale. And then when it starts to bend, keep building towards the closest tower. So they check which is the closest tower, and they start to build towards them, their own, until they connect, and they will start another one. So that's the way termites can build huge termite mounds. I'm not okay. So so the hazard part of this is, for example, when we have mother cells, totipotent cells that can become any cell in the body, they start to specialize and to put one and to make specialized cells like neurons or lymphocytes or whatever. But actually they can reverse their process and become again mother cells. So we can create, and actually it happens naturally, 1 cell per 10,000 cells in the body. So this is kind of this hazard, and there are more examples of of cellular uncertainty and hazard in nature. But so when we want to understand how to revitalize our systems and organizations, it is very interesting to see that regeneration is a process of life. And doing this to integrate the thinking that organizations are organisms, we can create very natural and beautiful ecosystems without central control. And no, there is not, for what I know, a really, there are experiments of self-organization in humans, but they are not kind of very concrete. We haven't dared to have these examples still. And that happens in between trees. They respect their spaces, they interact with each other, they create corridors for fauna. So the key is cooperation and to have the space to let emerge everything that it happens in the groups. You know, navigate the complexity, don't deny the complexity, and harmonize the diversity through what we have in common. We are diverse per se. We need to find what we have in common in order to go to another level and to find our simple rules that will help their self-organization specifically. So there is a call for this consciousness of the process and understand the observer collapses the creation. This is quantum physics. And the heart is what we need to really listen. This deep listening is from the heart, because that will create the resonance of our collective and our relationships in order to resonate with the planet, with the bioregion we are at, with the communities we are working with. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that it creates a perspective of how nature are self-organized. So thank you,
Melina, for that crash course in inspiration. So we'll move directly into Hugo, and Hugo will put a lot of these principles into context to understand more functional interpretation of them. Hugo?
Oops, you're on mute, Hugo.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you for being there. I think it's a great moment to share and to be together. I'm really happy to see dear friends and also other people working in this kind of initiatives. So I'm gonna be sharing the screen with my presentation, and if it's okay for everyone. Perfect. Let's go. Here. What can you see? Can you see the presentation or the menu?
See your secondary monitor.
It's the dashboard.
Ah. Okay. Is that okay now?
No, it goes back to the dashboard.
Like this then?
Yeah, this is fine. Like, I don't know if everyone can see the
So
detail.
this is the way. It's okay. So my name, as I say, is Hugo Araujo, and I do work in different kinds of disciplines. I'm certified biomimicry professional since 2011, 2013. I'm part of the second global generation, and Melina here is part of the first one, for example. So like deep story together in biomimicry, especially in biomimicry in Latin America and of course in our land, Colombia. So what I'm gonna do today is just to take you through the biomimicry design lenses, because I think it's very important just to share with you how we think in biomimicry in terms of governance. And that would be just done by Seven Vortex, because I cannot speak for this for like everyone. We're all trying to make our own approach on this and bringing like our perspective into the game. What I like from biomimicry is like nobody holds the truth, and we're all learning from each other. So the first thing is analyzing the context. And I like this idea of presenting as a fantasy economy that we're living in, because when we call externalities things that we cannot really put into the account, then it becomes like really as a fantasy way of seeing things. So it is an economy that is not connected. But this imaginary layer is the market that we live in. So it's very important to acknowledge that we are part of nature. And this projection of what we are is also part of nature. So we need to understand it and to make it work in a more aligned way with nature and with life. So I understand governance as a self-regulatory process. As Melina explained already, the idea of self-regulation. And I think it's important to understand that as a collective, we are, as nations, we are bringing governance to our lives. And this is our intention, to be governed in this way, or we have different kinds of intentions. So I went to see this artificial intelligence that I'd never been into before this. And it was very interesting to see their responses of what governance is. And I think it's as good as the one in Google that I saw also from Luis. And I don't think this is what matters the most, like discussing the really meaning of governance, but just to let you have an idea of where I come from, right? Like to understanding governance as the way the groups of organizations, they manage, control, and direct processes, policies, systems to determine how decisions are made and how power is exercised within a given entity. So in biomimicry, we go and then we see the function that we are looking into, and then we try to understand how nature works in this way. So we go to this taxonomy, and we try to think about like what kind of things are like sending signals, processing information, or computing, learning, different kinds of things that we can get from there. In my case, I also went into decision-making processes because I see governance with this idea of ensuring, like an effective governance is the one that ensures transparency, accountability, and participation, like held accountable. And it can enforce the rules, the policies, and standards, and the goal is to guide the behavior. So I think it was interesting as an idea. I never studied like this, but I do see the way that we do it in biomimicry. So in the part that Melina and myself are okay, is in the pillars or the essential elements of biomimicry, which is really about this ethos that we are not using with the intentions against life, the knowledge, the thing that we know from reconnection. So we are connected with nature as one nature, and from the side of emulation. So science actually keeps us together just in the way of emulation. So I went just for this example into metabolism, and these are also pieces that I've done before. So I hope you also enjoy them. So this is the way that I see metabolism, and it is the relationship between energy, matter, consumption, conversion, ecosystems, and organisms, and they're all connected. And in this way, it's a process where we need to see regulation to happen, and regulation is oriented towards life, to be alive as a system. If I think as an artist with the idea of regenerative metabolism, I wish to have all these kind of different parts of the metabolism adding to each other, so we can actually be efficient in the way of creating conditions conducive to life. So what I did as a piece was this idea on metabolic Earth. So how to think revisiting the Gaia version, how to see the planet as a metabolic being, and how to understand it. So once I had this vision of the blue veins, And the blue veins for me were really interesting because then it allowed me to be more empathetic with the planet as a whole, because I see it as veins, and I also could see the footprint of agriculture, for example, which is where we're lacking these blue veins in some places. So let me understand also the idea of bioregions. So all this part is a bioregion. And I would like to thank One Earth, but not just One Earth, like all what we're doing here comes from different sources. So we keep like adding to each other in the way that we can. And we are gonna see the gases that are happening also in this metabolic earth. So for example, if we can see the metabolic process happening and understand better how the system is working, we will see some gases that are like main pollutants, and they're really market-based also coincidences. So in here we see advertising agencies, we see stock exchanges, we see trade-offs, and we can see how there are some coincidences, and this is all data that comes from open sources, and it is really a major pollution. And for example, if I talk about my native country, which is Mexico, I do see the way that economic development is happening. So I don't need to point anyone, you know, like from my own country, I know that this is how progress look like. And I think it's very important just to acknowledge it. We can also see the other part of the planet, and the other part of the planet is this planet of water that is water-based, and it has different codes. And that is also important to acknowledge that in these veins, close to these bioregions, we see people from a regeneration movement all over the place. And this is focused in some of the places that we think that are like less connected with nature, but they are also very active in trying to bring regeneration to the planet. So it seems like with this perspective that we are working as a species more and more, and we are connecting more and more towards like a common goal that is regeneration of the planet. So if I go into the self-organized natural systems, which is also what Melina was presenting, then I have to say that my only focus, I come from business, I'm not a biologist. So I need to learn biology like from zero, and sometimes I learn it in the right part, sometimes I do mistakes, right? But what I know is that neural networks and mycelium and ecosystems, they are all based in relationships. So when I was in nature, just living in a healthy ecosystem, I say like, this is very important because it is all about the interdependencies that we have in between everyone. So what if we can create knowledge ecosystems where this local culture could be connected, and that will be like also information from nature connected, and that will give us like important knowledge to take better decisions. And these relationships or interdependencies are called energy exchanges. So what I learned from biology, what was very important, is the same kind of like diagram that Melina was sharing. It's about relationships, and there are 6 relationships, 9 exchanges, and this gives us a life-centered perspective with the exchanges. So how can we actually think the market as an ecosystem? Because if we can map the energy exchanges happening there, we can also see the impact, like the predatory impact from one company to the planet, for example, because now we will need to see the planetary perspective one way or another. So for me as a business, biomimicry have helped me to have the pillars, the life principles, the biomimicry thinking, and the deep pattern from biology in order to create a tool that it is a collective intelligence. As you can see, like these are my tools. So to connect community, pioneers, and organizations. In order to do this kind of tool, then the methodology was to get inspired from nature, from the local ecosystem, and most of the things that Melina is telling as well from science and from all this knowledge that she holds, for me, they were very evident when I was living close to nature, right? Like when I was sharing my nesting spot with this whole community of flamingos. And in this software became a knowledge management software inspired by ecosystems that it is already in as nature, so you can go there and also visit it from biomimicry. And the community it is around 5,000 curators. So we're very proud to say it because it really has been just an effort of one-on-one. And it is just beautiful to know that lots of people that are interested in these different kinds of communities are mapping there. And of course, we have worked with most of the like brilliant hearts, I would say. And I'm thankful to all of these people that are kind of making the difference around the world and using 7 Vortex. We have mapped communities, we have mapped lives, movements, research through research, conferences. And by using this idea of metabolic earth, we are also geolocating the ecosystem maps in there. And we are looking at the indigenous territories as well. So I'm gonna put just this video if it works. Otherwise, I think, yeah, there. 1 minute. Can you hear it? Yeah.
No.
Okay. So we went with them, and the last question was like, what do we want as humanity? Do we want to live or do we want to die? And this just very basic question that they were asking to in this ceremony, it just very deep put me in touch with biomimicry as well, because in biomimicry we think that there is this system goal that is creating conditions conducive to life. So actually, if we believe that the planet wants to live, then we are here to add value to this living tissue, right? And this is what we're doing as regenerators. And I think once that you understand that, then you can go and work with the life principles. And this is what we do. And this is how all the tools that I created in business way and in a way to create a difference from the market and from technology. Then I have created this digital membrane for trust and transparency. So right now, this membrane, it is helping different alliances. We have systemic goals that are interesting for bioregions. Like, and it's something that I've learned all over the way, right? Like, it is not knowledge that I can claim for myself, but it is really cumulative knowledge. And this is what we do as a species. By sharing, we actually can learn faster from each other. So it offers a balanced view, and then you have different kinds of visualizations. So we are using nature and these exchanges also to build a new narrative around bioregions and to understand how technology can actually help us to see the specific spots in the planet and bring connection to different actors around the planet and around the region. So from treaties to banks to governments, indigenous entrepreneurs, how can we actually build this mycelium, a digital mycelium as well? And we have already done it with Costa Rica Regenerativa, and it proved success for 1 year. And I think that is very important. And right now, like, it is not just the first part, but we have done it many times. And we are really happy to share that because all of you have been part of this. And I want to thank you as usual for all the efforts that you have put and the help that I have received. And I think this is the final message for me. It is that we are all part of the same energy. So it is really important for us to acknowledge it and to understand that it is in the advantage of everyone, right? It's a collective advantage that we have as humanity. So we really need to work towards this idea of having just a common goal as a species.
Thank you very much, Hugo and Melina. I think this is definitely food for thought. So the idea is to have a little conversation regarding questions and emerging thoughts that we each had. I do think it's important to realize a couple of large conclusions. One, the systems and let's say system governance is self-regulating and it's based on the relationships and quality of relationships. And that's one of the critical aspects. And the other one is that we are in nested systems that are self-organized. So the nesting is really important because when we talk about governance in an organization like Catalyst, you have many nests and many scales. And we really need to understand how to create self-organized, nested systems that can relate to each other in such a way that we create a healthy community that actually is even nested in the globe and in planetary action. So it's at scales that we can actually have more participation in self-organization, even to scales where we have very little participation in self-organization. So just some global reflections. So I open the floor. Maybe Steve, if you want to frame anything, and then, or anyone.
It's so beautiful. It's so profound what you're sharing. I'm deeply appreciative. I also am interested in what the implications would be for how we would move forward for adapting this, integrating this wisdom into the way, into the evolution of Catalyst 2030. I think that's the good framing. We started by looking at collaborations that have been emerging in Catalyst 2030, some of the patterns there. We also looked at DAOs as a form of emergent organizing, still certainly at their early stage of development. So this is beautiful. The connections between all of it are quite obvious, I think. But I'm wondering if maybe Hugo and Melina have some suggestions about what we should do to be able to evolve Catalyst 2030 and its system governance. Currently, the best way I would say it is that it's got a sort of a representative governance structure. That you're representing regions or you're representing something, you're supposed to be the voice for it. And anyways, and it's sort of structured as in a board or council or board sort of mindset of, I think there's two functions. I think of it as being a function for supporting the administrative apparatus of the organization, and then the other function is the system intelligence. So I'm wondering if you have any suggestions about what we should do, such as the development of principles, which obviously you've been emphasizing.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Well, I think that there are several things you can think about and implement. One is to find the functions, like for example, in your case, like which is the RCN case also, like the networks, like the bioregions have one representative, but there is a representative that because accomplished a function of cross-pollinating information. So I am a leader of Colombia Regenerativa, and I go to the RCN meetings to tell everybody there what's going on in Colombia Regenerativa. For example, this is kind of my function of being that. It is not because I am the leader, super wow, representative, everybody voted for me. It's more like because I speak English, I can share in many languages, I can, I am a communicator, whatever, like I started part of the process, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody else wanted to go or are able to go, or I am not able to go, and there is somebody else but can't go because it is not the person, it's the function that you need to focus on. This is one thing. The other thing, I think that for the administrative part, I'm gonna just share something that I did. It's in Spanish though, but this is a transdisciplinary bridges from management, which is gestión. And this is all are the functions that we have in the in management: execute, administer, design, articulate, control, hold, communicate. So when you go to any of them, for example, coordinate. You have the definition of coordination from the management perspective, but you can go through the transdisciplinary bridge, which is a PT, and to express the same thing without being sub-specifics. This is in Spanish. Sorry, I don't have it in English, but yeah. And if you want to cross the bridge towards biology, this connection will give you exactly the same definition, but from a biologist perspective, a biology perspective. So in order to coordinate, what it is saying here is to create information flows in the system with rhythm and frequency, so we can design strategies to sense the effect of an action in the context in a horizontal and vertical perspective. So you will facilitate an exchange. That's what it is saying from biology, taking into account this bridge of the definition of coordination from the management perspectives. If you want to cross further, you will find a biology strategy, and which is sense oscillations and patterns, and you have several examples of organisms that do that in different ways. But this kind of and this is for all these concepts. So this research, it was done 1 year ago, and several things have happened from there. But this is one tool that maybe we can, if we have the opportunity to translate it in English and to use it, well, it could be really great. But this is kind of the tools that we are creating to be able to make transdisciplinary bridges towards biology, like for management especially, like how we direct, of how we do accountability, or how we, this mindset, maybe we can just translate it to how does nature do it, or understand it. And there is something that it is very interesting when I did that work, and it is that planning, it is not natural. You can anticipate things. That's another thing. But to plan in order to say, this is the objective, this is the way we are going to do it, and that doesn't exist in nature. Actually, it's a self-organizing process. So we arrive to the same starting point of, create relationships, try to find the simple rules that you need. For example, for Catalyst, I don't know, frequency of meetings, a design process of getting things done, flows of information that you want to do, etc., etc. Kind of the first self-organizing processes. We don't know where we are going to go, but we know that following these simple rules will give us the direction towards our goal that we just anticipate, this kind of humility there, of humble perspective of we are co-creating this reality, this regenerative reality. So kind of going with the flow.
Deepa?
Oh, this makes me so happy on so many levels. It's blowing my brain. So thank you both so much. I've got a really practical question, because I've been asked by the Governing Council to we're looking at legal entities. And my concern when we look at legal entity for Catalyst is that how do we organize from a legal perspective? Legal hasn't caught up to this way of thinking from a network perspective, or has it? And it feels like I've had so many conversations with lawyers in the last 3 weeks. They're coming out of my ears, and it's such an antiquated model of system and organization and tax. And the woman said IP 5 times in one meeting yesterday, and it's like, but we're, when you think open source, or you think freedom of network and fluidity, I'm really worried that an antiquated. I've got so much pain.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Content,
think
I've
that
got- I've got gin on a drip.
Yeah, I think that when organisms evolve, and I'm gonna go a little bit quick with this because I see the time, but when an organism started to evolve in a context that it is counterintuitive with what it is emerging from the organism, there is a constraint out there, and what the organism can do is to send signals, like a tricky signals. So you can say, yes, we have a board and we have blah, blah, blah. Internally, you will function differently. Okay, so you have this membrane, and the membrane, it is very important to understand that the functions that it is needed to send the message, you know, like you can trick them.
My point is, I'm worried that a legal structure could hinder or provide a layer that is not malleable membrane enough for this kind of evolution to be cherished and nourished, because no one's feeding the soil, because it's rigidity of legality. Or do you keep the legality simple so that you can have a fluid membranes? Do you see what I mean? Because it's
for me, I think it is more like a translation membrane, you know, like it is not about tricking is a word, but when you put it in business, it means different things as well. So it is really about translation. And then you have to be aligned to the values that you think that are important for what you are doing, and then form fits function. This is the rule that I repeat myself very often, like form fits function. So what is the form that I need to take in order to get to that function? And you have many examples. So it is not just what we think is a good design, but in nature you see many things that are actually having the same kind of problem or dealing with the same kind of challenge. So how does nature do for dealing with these kind of things? And I think that would be a beautiful way just for you to start asking different or the same questions to different possibilities, right? Like try to understand how does that happen in nature.
Yeah. And this is the thing. And so as you think about having kind of partnership-based models or perpetual partnerships, there are things that are emerging, but not quickly enough, or with the
in my case, I'm a business and I'm a limited company like a SAS, but I am also a biomimicry business. So all my designs and my business, it is oriented to the life principles that I show, right? And I don't do business or I don't do anything that is not like aligned with this. And since I couldn't see it in the reality, then I framed my own business like this, and it was born like this. So now it was my decision. So if you would be in my organization, for example, that would be easier for you to make sense out of this towards what you need to deliver as well. But this is very difficult, and I can feel that I'm opening the path because everything is not just there. So
I have to interrupt because unfortunately I have people in a waiting room for my next meeting. This is why I think that we need an hour and a half. An hour meetings do not allow for our collective intelligence to come forward. And so I would like to propose the next meeting be in 2 weeks. It'd be an hour and a half, and I will take leadership to organize something around sociocracy. With this meeting, it's been immensely valuable. I am thinking that it would be good to, if Hugo and Melina have the time and the bandwidth and interest, to participate in our other meetings as well, so that we form a collective intelligence about these different governance approaches. So what I will do is send out a recording, send out and share some of my thoughts about what that have come out of today's meeting. Invite Melina and Hugo to the extent they're interested in participating, unless somebody has a big concern about that. have you, I encourage you to add your thoughts in this document as well. Is that satisfactory? I'm afraid I really have to
Yes.
go.
Steve,
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, thank you.
Yes,
But quickly, I think we should spend the next meeting discussing this wonderful learning that we've had first before we jump into any more new ideas, Steve. Honestly, I think this
Okay.
is my mind heart is both full. But anyway, Steve, we'll let you go. Bye. Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Shiv.
Thank you, Melina, Hugo.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thank you.
I came
Hi,
into the
Karen.
right call.
Hey, Karen.
Hey,
Hey,
Karen.
how are you, Luis?